Hello, I'm Michael. Today I'm going to be refuting the information and data used in Kimberly's claim that marijuana is an effective treatment for many different chronic illnesses. Her arguments, I'm going to show you, were they made many leaps, and most of them are actually irrelevant. Her first argument, let me outline it for you real quick. Her first argument that cannabis can be used to treat depression and anxiety, I believe is misleading, and I will show you why. Her second argument that marijuana can be used with children lacks supporting data, and quite frankly is irrelevant to the claim. And her third argument that marijuana can help with menstrual pain lacks compelling data, and parts of the argument are irrelevant and not actual data. It's more of informative. She's talking about a product that can be bought, and nothing's been said. But I want to talk about her first argument first. So cannabis can be used to treat depression and anxiety. She uses statistical information and data from the National Institute of Health. The data she used it in a very dishonest way, I believe. She states that what they say, she summarizes it, she states that the information used suggests that marijuana can treat depression and anxiety. However, after reading the article by them, it states rather that THC, the cannabinoid, the part of marijuana, one part of it, is effective with treating depression and anxiety. And this is dishonest because she compares the cannabinoid, THC, to the whole marijuana, when in reality, in the same article, they state that the cannabinoid THC is one of 60 cannabinoids present in marijuana. And further, that the other cannabinoids are either irrelevant or serve a medical purpose. And I believe it's dishonest for her to imply that marijuana on a whole should be used in place of THC, especially when they talk about how easily it can be used, like it can be produced in a laboratory setting and extracted, and then not have the psychological adverse effects of marijuana. Continuing on, the data, furthering on, I had a bit of confusion when I looked at her main claim at this point, because her main claim is that marijuana is an effective treatment for many different chronic illnesses. Because she said effective, I believed, it led me to believe that it's already established to be a treatment for different chronic illnesses. And so then I was trying to quantify it. I was trying to understand, I was comparing it to other things, but there's nothing to compare in the argument. She simply stated that marijuana shows that it can help with anxiety and depression, but then that's the end of that argument. And so I'm left wondering, well, why would I choose to use marijuana to treat my anxiety and depression when I could take an antidepressant and I won't be intoxicated from it? I can still drive my car, I can still operate machinery. So moving on to her second argument, where she states that marijuana can be used on children. The only data she has to support this is anecdotal. She takes a documentary done by CNN. I had to look it up. It wasn't in her citations. She did reference it. But the documentary is about marijuana use in general, and there's one instance where they talk about a girl in Colorado, and she struggled with seizures, and so they've given her, once again, the extract from marijuana, not marijuana itself, and it helped with her seizures. The problem is that this is anecdotal. This is the only circumstance, and it doesn't follow up with any more research on any other children. If she's claiming that it can be used on all children, well, we've taken one circumstance of one child benefiting from it, and even then, the doctors still say there's no doctor's evidence to suggest it. It's all based on the story that this girl is doing well because of it. And I want to follow that up with, it doesn't matter for the main claim if it can be used on children, because her claim is that it can help children, but that doesn't relate to the main claim that it can be used on chronic illnesses. That's a completely different argument at this point. And what's weird is that when she stated the argument, she phrased it as if she was trying to claim that it works with seizures, and that isn't an argument. That is an argument that would work with the main claim. It's very compelling, actually. There's plenty of data. However, it seems like it's just a very false appeal to emotion by stating that it works on this one child and showing a very sad story about it working, and thus I just feel like it should be dismissed because it's just not relevant to how it affects all chronic illnesses. Finally, her third argument claims that marijuana can help with menstrual pain. She uses two examples. One she references Whoopi Goldberg's company where they sell their product that's marijuana based. She describes the products, all of them, she says what they are, and then she doesn't go into any further detail. And she backs this all up with Whoopi Goldberg's testimony that it works. At this point, it's just selling the product. I don't see anything relevant about it. The follow-up, though, the other part of it, is the cannabis tampons, Nurofen by Euphoria, relies entirely on testimony. And it's not just testimony, it's anonymous testimonies, anonymous submitted reviews to the website. So whether or not it does work is irrelevant because she's failed to mention any sort of information to counter. She's just simply stated that the website has all these reviews and the reviews are all anonymous. I have no reason to believe that these are real people at this point. So to sum it all up, I have shown that her first argument is a bit misleading in the way it uses information, whether or not the information is true. The data it uses, whether or not the data is true. The second argument is unsubstantiated, and it's also quite irrelevant to the main claim. And her third argument lacks data, and it contains quite a bit of information that isn't really relevant or useful for the argument itself. Thank you.
I just didn't get mine.
All right, well, the secondary points are outlined clearly at the beginning of the speech. You take a general position on each of those as you're getting started, probably a little bit more than you need to do on those individual points in the preview, and save some of that argument for the actual presentation itself. But it didn't hurt. It just, it's a time issue, yeah, and you're 6.5 minutes almost, so it's a little bit long. The criticism of the article from the National Institute of Health, I think you want to be careful about saying that your opponent is being dishonest, although I think that there is an argument here that says that it's not been accurately presented. I think you're better off to maybe keep the language a little bit more objective that way and say, the article talks about how there's one cannabinoid out of the 60 that are present in marijuana that might have this potential benefit, and the advocate seems to imply that all marijuana would have this particular benefit, and that is not really what the National Institute of Health is saying. I think you keep it simple at that level instead of saying, liar, liar, pants on fire. That's not really going to be very effective. Then the question about effective treatment, I think is an interesting point. The argument seems to be that is it more effective than alternatives? And you kind of take it as a given that there are effective treatments for these kinds of issues, although you don't really offer much proof on it. I mean, I know that there are a variety of antidepressants that people can take, and their effectiveness, though, needs to be measured. And I think if you could say, 75% of people who take the antidepressants experience substantial improvement in their performance, reduction in their anxiety, whatever it happens to be, and we don't have any data that indicates what the level of effectiveness is for marijuana usage, then I think your argument would be a little bit clearer. Because that's really the argument that you're making there, that it's not shown to be any more effective than what we currently have. The argument about the child, I thought you did a good job challenging that as a piece of evidence. It's anecdotal, it's a single case, you're making big inference, and again, we're dealing with one potential cannabinoid rather than a lot of them, and I think that that's a reasonable challenge. The fact that it's a child and a specific kind of issue, I don't know that that's as big a deal as you seem to be making. I'm not sure that you get much out of that particular point. The idea that it's an emotional appeal, I think that's a legitimate argument to say, look, they're making an appeal to pity here because who would want to deny a child this opportunity? However, all we have is this one self-reported case, and there are plenty of situations where that kind of research is not really acceptable. There's no demonstration that it would be effective. We don't make medical decisions based on testimonials that you get in the back of a magazine saying, well, I took this pill for 5 days and I lost 15 pounds. You know, that's not a measure of effectiveness. It's not certainly not a medical measure of effectiveness. It's a very effective persuasive tool of selling a product, but that's not what we're looking at. We're looking at, is it medically effective? And we have no assessment of it whatsoever from a medical point of view here. We don't even know if it's not even a placebo type effect that might be going on in this situation. And then the menstrual pain one, which all occurs outside of your time limit. I thought that you did an okay job responding to it. Look, we know that the products exist, but there's no demonstration that they work. The only demonstration that they work comes from somebody who sells those products and claims that they work. Hey, there's a little bit of bias. And then anonymous testimony on a website where people are posting their endorsement. We don't even know who these people happen to be. You know, it could be like some college instructor who creates a Rate My Professor account to make themselves look better. You know, maybe that's what's going on there. All right, thank you.